Thank you.
Thank you. If we could just get the screen. Now, I just want to clarify, in case any of you were confused, because I think the defense is confused. The state is not arguing that the defendant chased John Miller around a car. I'm arguing there was the defendant where the X was, John was where the J was. As John stated, the laser gets trained at his head when he's standing there immediately after Rebecca's shot. John runs. The defendant stays there. Laser on John as he comes around that vehicle, he is shot. And the bullet goes through the right side of his face, out the left side. And if we move on, let's go to the next one first. Thank you. That is a view of where the defendant would have been standing as he trained his gun on John as he came around and shot John in the face. That explains how the jacket got there. I'm going back to the other one. That's fine. Yeah. So again, John is shot in the right side of the face and out the left side of the face. John testified to it. His medical records support it. So if we go back to that map again, the defendant's version just cannot be true, because what he testified to was that John was in the path of running toward him and kept running when he was shot in the face. That would mean John would have had to have been shot in the left side of the face. No evidence supports that. John's injury doesn't support that. Now, to believe the defendant's version of events, you've got to believe in a whole lot of conspiracies. You've got to believe that Rebecca and her family were conspiring to get into a gun battle for insurance money. That's the first conspiracy. Then you have to believe that that Rebecca's means of getting the defendant to come over is to repeatedly tell him, "Leave me alone." That doesn't make any sense. She didn't want him there. She wasn't luring him anywhere. She wanted to be done with him. Then you have to believe this story that there was a gun laying under this table that somehow disappeared. The defendant claims he saw it, fell out of her hand, laying under a table in the garage. There's no evidence Rebecca ever left that garage. Officers found her. You saw the pool of blood from where she was lying. The blood droplets in the driveway don't come back to her. There's no evidence that John Miller re-entered the garage. Had John entered the garage and crawled under a table, we would expect to see blood droplets from him. You saw how the neighboring driveways looked when he ran through. There was blood droplets all over. He was really bleeding. There was no blood leading into the garage, no other blood droplets. There was Rebecca's blood in the garage, no evidence she'd gone anywhere else, and John's blood was in the yard and the neighboring properties. The guns are accounted for. If Rebecca and her family are engaged in this big conspiracy, why on earth would Rebecca be the one to bring that to officers' attention? Rebecca asked officers if her guns could be released to her. They're hers, it's understandable. When they tell her no, and that they're keeping them as part of this case, she volunteers that information to officers. She says, "Hey, you missed one." She brings it to the police department. She wasn't hiding anything. This just didn't occur to her that this was an issue. Detective Robertson even testified that when he was in the hospital on August 5th, the day after the shooting, she discussed her Smith & Wesson .380 then. She discussed it with him again when he was back at the hospital on the 11th. She has not tried to hide a single thing. She's been open about everything. Officers have testified that both Rebecca and John have been fully cooperative in this case. They have provided everything asked of them, answered every question asked of them. I think the defense is mischaracterizing Detective Hinkey's testimony regarding John. She never said that John was inconsistent. The defense wants to grasp at straws by trying to get you to believe that this nurse's statement is something more than the obvious, that the nurse misunderstood what a frantic mother was saying when she was learning that her daughter was shot in the head. There's already some confusion, even if the nurse thinks she remembers exactly what was said. Julie's friend Carla isn't married to John. She testified it's her boyfriend. They've been dating 8 months. So maybe Julie mentioned husband somewhere in this statement, but it certainly wouldn't be with regard to the friend that was driving there, because he wasn't anyone's husband. He's not married to Carla. So I think the obvious explanation is the explanation. Like I said, frantic mother, a nurse giving her the news about what happened to her daughter, and a nurse misunderstanding what was said. She even testified that it's possible that she misunderstood, and that's what happened. Now, the judge gave you an instruction that you're not to search for doubt, you're to search for the truth. And there are two very different versions of what happened here. But again, all of the evidence, all of the defendant's actions, they all support that this was an intentional homicide and attempted homicides motivated by anger, jealousy, and a desire to control Rebecca and to remain in the relationship with her. You saw those Facebook messages. You saw him again and again and again try to get back with her. You saw her say no, no, no. She didn't want him there that day. No one lured him there. He went there out of anger. He went there because he was mad she was defying him. I think the evidence speaks for itself. The state has presented all of the evidence expected to be presented to you in this case, and I do believe the evidence is certainly sufficient to find the defendant guilty as to all counts, and I would ask you to return verdicts of guilty as to each of the 3 counts. Thank you.